Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. You're listening to the longest running superhero role playing game on Earth. I'm your host, the Game Master, and in this one, we're going to be talking some about a big DC event from the 90s called Final Night, which was the death of Hal Jordan. It involved a creature called the Sun Eater. It was a pretty big deal at the time. And in our game, we kind of took that ball and ran with it. And then the other thing we mixed in with that story was based on something from Batman Beyond, where they did a direct to video movie called The Return of the Joker. And in that, the Joker comes back, and it's like in Bruce Wayne is elderly, but the Joker seems to be in his prime. You know what I mean? And Bruce Wayne can't figure out how on earth has this happened. And so he thinks maybe it's a clone or maybe it's like a copycat killer or something like that. And but the Joker knows stuff about him. And Bruce remembers how the Joker died, and this Joker seems to remember that as well. So Bruce is thinking this is the real deal. This is really the Joker somehow. And he can't figure out how he's young. So we had that same thing kind of sort of happen in the game during this time period. But the way we did it, first of all, our Bruce Wayne was Batman in World War II, right? In the Golden Age. He was the first Batman. And he was Batman for decades until he uh passed the mantle of the bat on to Dick Grayson, who had been Robin. So Dick Grayson in our game world was the second Batman. And then in the 90s, the early 90s, Dick Grayson fought Bane, and by then Dick Grayson was super old, right? And unfortunately, he did not survive that encounter with Bane. And so now we are on to the next Batman, which is a guy named Jean-Paul Vallée, who is far more violent than either Bruce Wayne or Dick Grayson ever were. And Jean-Paul Vallée has had at this point several run-ins with the Tim Drake Robin, who is the Robin of the 90s, where Robin hates how violent Jean-Paul Vallée is. And they've butted heads over it. And the Jean-Paul Vallée version of Batman, or the Azrael Batman, or As-Bat, as some people call him, has on no uncertain terms told him to like stay out of my way or else. So these two do not like each other. So during the final night, there's a lot going on. In the background of this story, there's like this giant leech kind of space creature thing has attached itself to the sun. So winter just won't end, right? It's crazy cold. It's getting colder every day. It's perpetually dark. The snow will not stop, right? Various superheroes like Captain Atom is having to supply the power grid because it can't keep up with the demand. Everybody's running electric heaters and stuff like that. We had a guy named Xerox who could copy and paste physical objects, and so he's doing that with like canned goods and stuff, trying to keep the world fed. All the superheroes have been busy with all this stuff. And in the midst of all of this, the Joker returns. And he seems to be young. He's in his prime. And nobody can figure out what's going on. And so Tim Drake hears that the Joker is back. And of course, As-Bat, right? Jean-Paul Vallée is going to try to go find this Joker and kill him. Um, so Tim Drake wants to do it by the book. He wants to arrest him, put him back in Arkham Asylum, the classic bit. And by the way, the Tim Drake Robin is really good friends, possibly best friends, with the 80s Superboy, who we've mentioned several times on the channel now. He was part of our big Lore Zod story at one point. Um, at any rate, that Superboy and this Robin are, honestly, at this point, they're the world's finest, because um, when we did the death of Superman, Superman stayed dead. Like I said, Jean-Paul Vallée is Batman, and he's not not your father's Batman, right? So, so Superboy and Robin actually are more traditional heroes, and we did Kingdom Come recently, where Superboy fought Magog. Superboy actually lost, but everybody's heart kind of went out for him, and saw that he was fighting the good fight. And so even though he didn't die, but I mean, even though he lost the fight by a mile, um, it was almost like a martyr thing almost, where it kind of rallied people together. And so Robin has been sort of inspired by this, where he wants to do this by the book. That's the bottom line. He wants to behave in a way that would have made his Batman proud of him, right? The Batman before Jean Paul took over. So Robin finds out the Joker is running around, and he starts to follow the trail of breadcrumbs. And he starts doing the thing of going to abandoned comedy clubs and toy stores and anything that he thinks the Joker might use as a base of operations. And he finds one, and he's really kind of shocked that for some reason the Joker's goons seem to be pulling their punches and going easy on him. And he thinks that doesn't make sense. And it made him wonder if this was the same Joker or not. And so at any rate, Tim Drake would have these encounters, beat up some goons, but the Joker was always one step ahead of him, no matter what he did. And sometimes when Tim would wake up, he would find out that the Joker had been in his bedroom that night and was leaving him like notes and telling him to just like, leave it alone, or you'll end up like Dick Grayson, that there's been a lot of people. Dick Grayson was Robin, and he's dead. Jason Todd was Robin, and he was dead. Bruce Wayne Jr., the son of Bruce Wayne and the Golden Age Catwoman, he was a Robin. He's also dead, right? So the Joker's basically saying, "Hey, I'm sensing a trend. maybe, maybe quit. Just quit." And of course, Tim Drake won't do that, because Tim Drake is he's a good guy. In our world, he's upholding the good. So so at any rate, it gets to the end of this whole big thing, and so finally he finds a VCR tape, and Tim Drake learns the horrible truth, which was that before the original Joker died, he kidnapped Tim and broke him to the point where Tim has multiple personalities. So we've got kind of a Fight Club kind of a situation here, right? So it turns out the Joker was able to put nanoscopic robots inside of Tim Drake's body that have the ability to sort of like rewrite his DNA. So basically, Tim is like a were Joker. He can actually transform into the Joker. And then these nanoscopic robots contain the Joker's memories. Um, so yeah, he's a massive problem. And so he changes into the Joker. He fights Jean-Paul Vallée. And the thing is, before Jean-Paul Vallée and Tim Drake had their big falling out, Jean-Paul Vallée was designing all of his gear using the Bat computer in the Bat Cave, which Tim had access to. So Tim actually knows how all the equipment works. He knows its weaknesses. So again, he's one step ahead. So even though the Asbat version of Batman is willing to kill Tim on no uncertain terms, he would not hesitate for a second, right? He can't, because The Tim Drake Joker is just always one step ahead of him. But we had that going on, like I said, in the background of the Final Night story. Um, and I really liked that a lot. I thought it was really cool. I remember I was actually working at a toy factory at the time. It made like little slides and tricycles and stuff, kind of like preschool type toys. But it was like a mindless job where, it was factory work where you're just kind of doing the same physical action with your hands all day long, and my mind was just free to roam. Um, and I thought up this idea, wouldn't it be cool if there was a hero chasing the villain and he did not realize he was the villain? Um, so yeah, that was that. We really liked this story. And at the end of it all, just like in the comics, how Jordan uh takes out the Sun Eater, but he himself dies in the process. And just like in the comics, then uh most people forgive Hal Jordan for all the parallax stuff, and there are statues and things of that nature erected on Earth to celebrate what they call the greatest Green Lantern who ever lived. Um, and the Sun Eater is destroyed, and the sun comes out. The sun turns green for a little bit when it's like reignited, where Parallax used his power to do that, and then it changes yellow again, and you know we go from there. But yeah, that was our take on Final Night. Um, I hope that you enjoyed hearing about it. If so, as always, smash that like button. Check to make sure you're still subscribed because YouTube loves to unsubscribe you without telling you. And as always, leave us a comment. Did you see Batman Beyond? Did you see the Return of the Joker? What did you think of that? Um, did you read the Final Night comics? Did you like those? Let me know in the comments. I would love to see what you guys have to say about it. And from everybody here associated with the longest running superhero role playing game on earth, we hope you guys have a good one, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.